I don't even know where my good webcam is. I put it somewhere. I had to use this computer for. Oh, we're live. Good day, YouTube. Good day. Um, this is Chris's baby, so I'll let him introduce.
Good Saturday nights, everyone. I'm Chris. We all very familiar with Chad McGee, the Rhino. Tonight is the interview with the Rhino. We find out what makes this beautiful beast tick. Over 4 million years, a rhinoceros has roamed the earth. Tonight, we have one cornered with a pint of beer. What are you drinking, Chad?
Well, since I'm supposed to have some movies with my kids tonight, we're going with the light stuff. So I got District Light Craft Lager right now.
Is that the one with the 16?
No, that was Great Western. These guys are here in Regina, Great Western, Saskatoon.
All right. Well, first off the hop, a topic we can all kind of sink our teeth into. Hops in dark beer. I think it was around 2012. There was the BJCP update during the hop phenomenon where they created a style called Cascadian Dark Ales. And that's because people were just putting hops into everything. And the reason for it being Cascadian was they just decided to pick one hop. And with some military background in my family, like most of us have, I was down with that. Just keep it to one hop and have at it. I brewed a Cascadian Dark Ale myself, and I was quite pleased with it. It was literally all Cascade. I can't quite get into some of the other beers, dark beers with hops, but this is where I want to hand it over to Chad. Chad, where are you with hops and dark beer?
Personally, I am a big fan of maltier dark beers. Like I want my stouts and my porters and my English milds and brown ales, and I want it to be more malt forward than hop forward. I remember my first Cascadian dark ale was probably Flying Monkey's Cascadian dark ale, and was not huge on that. It grew on me the more I drank beer, as I mean, hops do grow on most people.
Right?
Cascade's still not my favorite hop, but it grew on me. Then they came out with a few years down the road from that. It was El Matador, which was their darker IPA with cedar and a whole bunch of like it. It it also was not something that really. It tasted like I was drinking right from the chainsaw. You know, you're cutting down the forest and you're and it wasn't really for me. But I know what you're talking about. The more like when you get a black IPA nowadays, you are usually looking at something much more uh, weird, to be honest. Like much more rounded, shall we say. And some of them can be really fruity and nice, and some of them can be really sharp. You never know what you're going to get with what's out there now with the Cascadian darks. Well, they're just darks now,
Absolutely.
black IPAs now. I think if I was to drink a black IPA, I'd want to go back to the more original style, just the like you said, just to throw a bunch of Cascade in and see what happens. But I don't know how I feel about it. Again, if I'm drinking a black beer, I want it to be that chocolate, coffee, toffee, caramel. I don't want the hoppiness.
We got a very nice to see Matt joining us tonight. Matt's always here. It's always good to hear from him. Matt, again, a very generous contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt. Again, I'm going to have to come there, and you're going to have to come here, and I might have to videotape me kicking you for both of those. The job, I don't hate it, but it doesn't pay enough. I haven't found a second job yet, but I do have four different interviews this week. One of them's a second interview, and the other two are first interviews. So we'll see where things go from there.
At least it's getting you out of the house. With dark ales and the style guideline, the restrictions, the Cascadian dark ales, I don't remember any Cascade dark ales coming out in release. A lot of us homebrewers were making them, and it seemed as if in the brewing industry they just jumped right into IPAs.
Yeah, like I said, the first one I ever had, and other than homebrew ones, it may have been the only one I had for years, was the Cascadian Dark from Flying Monkeys. And I remember, I believe it was Lachlan, the Reverend, that reviewed it with me. I'd have to look up who reviewed it with me, but I believe it might have been the Reverend, or it might have been one before I started bringing the guys in. But it had a great label, and it didn't have a great taste. I was really excited though because I knew I liked dark beers, and I also kind of knew that I wasn't a big fan of the Cascade hop. So
Okay.
as much as I should have put it together that Cascadian Dark would be a dark beer with
Like,
Cascade, I didn't.
right. Cascades became so overused. I used to refer to them as the chicken penne of hops. Like, it's just we've lost that connection now with Cascade, because Cascade's still a brilliant hop, and it helps you stay within certain restraints without going overboard and bringing much more hop character to a dark beer where you're not necessarily looking for hop character, fresh hop character anyway.
Sorry, I was just posting in the comment section there to Matt about, talk to me about this setup. Let us know how you feel about this. I know the Hangouts are very popular, and we are still going to do the Hangouts. Like we said, we're going to be doing this on a rotational right now. I just felt like whenever we get a more in-depth, more laid-back conversation, we seem to have more people interested, because I think we're all getting older, right? The frat boy drinking thing just doesn't seem to be the thing anymore for a lot of us. So I mean, we're just trying something new, see how it goes, and yeah.
It's even for something like this that we could even find time for, even on a Saturday night. But of course, the chat room is still open, and everyone that wants to participate tonight, we're still going to acknowledge through the chat.
Yeah, all comments and questions that want to get added can get added through there. We do have a time limit. We have a floating time limit. We said this is the shortest it's going to be, this is the longest it's going to be, and whatever ends up happening in between those two times is what happens. So, yay.
For hops in dark beers, there's a few styles that we don't talk about too much. Some of the darker Belgians, an Eisbock, and these are beers that have hop presence in them, a fairly substantial amount of bitterness, but for the fermentation process and the brewing process that they go through, you're not really getting fresh hop taste, but you're getting morphed hop taste from how it travels through the process.
Yeah, and there's also the American barley wines. I mean, a lot of times they're on the darker spectrum, and they again also come off with a lot more hops in them than a lot of people realize. And again, if I'm going for a barley wine, I usually steer towards the English barley wines, because I'd rather have that more malt forward flavor. And an English barley wine, though it might be hot as soon as you start drinking it, if you're drinking it fresh, it's not going to be hot and hoppy, which is what I don't like about the American barley wines. I think the biggest problem with American barley wines for me is sitting there and being patient and waiting for it to age for a year or two so that it calms down.
Brooklyn barley wine wouldn't give you any trouble with that. You could drink that fresh, or you could drink it after 10 years. What do we have there, Chad?
This is District, again, the same brewery. This is their Hero Milk Stout, and Hero Milk Stout is a non-alcoholic milk stout. We're looking at 0.4% ABV. And yeah, malt, yeast, hops, water, lactose. So I'm a little intrigued by this one.
Good man. With your review that you posted, I believe it was today or yesterday, in regards to the lime lager, the salt lime lager. Do you remember the name of that beer?
The Fieldhouse salted lime Mexican lager.
One comment that you were practically shouting at the tail end of the review is for brewers to dial it back. And it's not necessarily a test of restraint either. It's you're reaching a certain point and you don't have to go any further. You've already gotten the job done at a certain point. We've really been talking that a lot about that quite a bit with lagers. Talk about dialing it back.
I mean, you see it all the time, right? We've talked about it. A lot of other people have talked about it. You can go out and you can buy a lager from a lot of different breweries nowadays. I mean, originally you wouldn't see a lot of lagers coming out by the brewers because they didn't want to try and make the macro-esque beers, or you wouldn't see a lot of cream ales, or you wouldn't see a lot of Vienna lagers or pilsners. Then it really started rolling, and you started seeing a lot more pilsners, kolsches, lagers. But a lot of them would come out and be very hopped. A lot of times you're going to pick up a lager that it will even say hopped lager, or it will say tropical lager, or it will say uh, well, hoppy lager is the one you see the most, or it won't say anything like that. It'll just say this brewery's lager, and you drink it, and you just get punched in the face by hops. And I don't understand the concept of taking the everyman beer or the everyman styles of beer and trying to reinvent the wheel. It's beer that's sold for generations. And I get at the same time you want to put the flavor in. You want to make a beer that people are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm drinking a craft beer. You can do that without going way out there. I'm just looking for the can. Oh, I already put it on the ground. I was looking for the can I just drank, but things like District Light, you get the graininess, you get the sweetness, you get everything you're supposed to get from a lager, but it tastes clean. It doesn't have the apple juice flavor that some macros have. It doesn't have the oxidized flavor some macros have. It doesn't have the like walking down the hall in an apartment taste that
It's a good reference.
beers have. It is clean. It's crisp. It's easy drinking. And it has very minimal flavor, but there's enough flavor to let you know what you're drinking. And that's what I really want. And I mean, you get something like a salted lime lager, and you're like, well, why are we going this far into it? Why are we using this many hops, or why are we using this much lime, or why are we making this so much more than it needs to be? Just make a Mexican lager. If I want to add lime to it, I'll add lime to it. If I want to add salt to it, I'll add salt to it. I mean, it wasn't a bad beer. It wasn't a bad beer at all. Don't get me wrong. I really actually enjoyed the beer. I'd buy the beer again. But it's one of those things where why are we just making things more and more complicated than we need to be? But Fieldhouse is a great brewery. I've had a lot of their beers. They do a really good job. I had no idea they had a lager line. And I sat there after I went off camera, and I should have brought it up on camera, but I was sitting there going, well, what the fuck are you going to do with a lager line? How much can you do with a lineup of lagers? I mean, a lager is a lager is a lager is a lager. What you can't say this is my lager line. Here's my cream ale, but I mean, there's so many facets of the everyday beer, and like you said, we do talk about dialing it back. How many cream ales are out there now that they're like, this is our cream ale with lactose. This is our cream ale with lactobacillus. This is our cream ale with pepper. Just make a cream ale. You want to make something that's in depth and very savory or very flavorful or something like that. There is tons of styles to do that with. Why are you taking the styles that beer educators try and train people, go and get this if you're not big into beer? Why are we taking those styles and making them blow up into something that they don't necessarily need to be?
I think I might have an answer for that. It's just that the market has become so completely oversaturated with craft beer. In a beer that's not craft, say Pabst Blue Ribbon, if you were a home brewer and you made your own Pabst Blue Ribbon at home and you made an exact clone, you'd be quite pleased with yourself, with your brewing capabilities, if you were able to make something that at the level at home. But where we were pushing for lagers to be a little bit different at the beginning, because I always used to say that a lot can happen at a table with one person drinking a Fuller's London Porter and someone drinking a Molson Canadian. And the idea was to add a little something different to the lager just to pull people in. But now we're at the point where we don't even know what a lager is anymore. And it's just the state that lagers are in, I think right now, is just confusion. People don't know what they want. Do they want to taste like nothing at the end, or do they want to taste like hops at the end? They can't.
And I mean, it seems to be, and we'll get to that comment right there because I agree with that comment. But it seems to be that a craft brewer thinks that you're not a craft brewer. At least a lot of them seem to think that you're not a craft brewer if your beer isn't hoppy.
Right.
And there are a lot of macro breweries that use a lot of hops. They're just different types of hops that you wouldn't normally see in a craft brewery. We've talked about Galena. We've talked about a few others. Miller has its own proprietary hop. And I mean, they use a lot of it. You wouldn't know
Right.
because there's almost no hop flavor, but they use it.
So lager isn't about flavor. It's about balance, a crisp touch, malt, clean touch finish. He's talking about balance. And I completely agree with that. What I'm finding that's missing in lagers right now is just that 2-row malt bite at the end. Just that last little sip at the end. I don't want that replaced with hops. I don't want it replaced with Munich malt. It just, that classic malt finish that seems to be gone. I can't find it anywhere anymore. Beers for breakfast is here. The Iceman doth floweth. I'll tell you that. Now,
And I mean, yeah, like you said, the dialing it back is a thing. And I mean, even in ABVs, you're noticing. I'm noticing the ABVs climbing again. We had a point where when craft beer started, the ABVs were pretty on par with what was out there already. And then a few years later, they jumped where your average craft beer was in the 7 and 8% alcohol range because they were making all these imperials. And then it was like they dropped back down to lighter beers. And now I'm even here in Saskatchewan, I'm seeing a lot of 6.5, 7s, 8s out on the shelf. And I'm like, but you guys are all complaining about having a hard time staying open. Why are we making higher and higher ABV beers that people can't buy as many of at one time in your brew pub, or can't drink as many of in one time? Because if I'm drinking a 10% alcohol beer, I'm probably only drinking one or two of them that night instead of 5 or 6% alcohol beers. Where if I'm drinking the 5 or 6 of the 5 to 6% alcohol beers, I'm going back to buy more from you sooner.
right. Also, a beer built properly with higher alcohol, it's a more expensive beer to make. That's why I thought we would see a lot more of a neutral alcohol content and even lower coming out. People trying to nail the style of a lager. Even if you brew a lager at 4%, it's not necessarily a light lager. 4% is still perfectly acceptable for American lager beer. Dave is here. Where do you guys see the future of lager? Macro dominates and recedes in market share. Craft seems to show minimal interest in lagers. What is the future of lager beer? That's a good question.
I think your future in lager beer is going to be a lot less of the macro brands that are out there right now. Like whatever your regional brand is probably what you'll see. Whatever your major macro brands are is probably what you'll see. And then for craft, depending on your province, territory, state, whoever made the first ones, like I'm sure New York will always have Brooklyn Lager. I'm sure the US as a whole will always have Samuel Adams Lager. I'm sure Ontario will almost always have Bose Lug Tread and Steam Whistle Pilsner. Like those are craft beers that are so ingrained in the culture and in the society of those places that I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know if you'll see all the nuanced ones that are out there. Hopefully, as much as growing into this industry, I loved myself a Pivo Pils and stuff like the Firestone Walker Pivo, the new style Pilsners with the more floral and fruity hops. I loved that. Now I'm in my 40s. I want just the basic Pilsner. I never thought I would get to that point. When I started doing these videos, I was in my early 20s and I was like, I fucking hate this shit. And now I'm like, this is what I want. I want a beer I can just drink, not think much about, and enjoy. And I don't think you're going to see a lot. And then depending on where you are as well, I mean, here in Saskatchewan, are you going to pay if you want a lager, if you're looking for a lager, are you going to go and pay $5.25 a can for like Rebellion's beer, or are you going to go pay $2 for a Bud? So which one's going to survive the way things are going? And you're right, craft breweries don't seem to be caring as much. There are a lot of them that still make them, but they don't seem to be caring as much, and that's partially because of how much harder it is to make one with no flaws, how
Mm-hmm.
much harder it is to break into that market because there's loggers that have been around for hundreds of years or decades upon decades, and how long you're waiting on it, like how long you need to keep it in your fermenters, in your vessels, to properly lager it, and you're just taking away from ales that you could be making on a faster, more rotational basis.
And I think for the vast majority of lager drinkers out there, we want to be drinking lagers by the 6 pack. And then that's going to go to your counter to your affordability comment. So it seems, the go-to lagers are going to be out there, like Beers for Breakfast enjoys Laker Ice. I've talked about how, Laker, when I've had it close to St. Catharines, it was a fresher product. And yeah, Laker was only $2 or something a can. It seems like you would go more to the big boys now for that lager and trying to find one of those big boys that can still get you that little lager bite at the back end. So Chad, how about this? If a craft brewery got on board and built and brewed just a basic lager and then sold it to Molson or Labatt's, because all Molson's going to do is increase the distribution.
Well, I mean, I guess no, Mill Street didn't really have just your basic lager, did they? Because I was going to say, Creemore Springs lager was bought by
Right.
Molson, but Creemore Springs was a more hoppy lager to begin with. It was more like I guess it was more like a Vienna lager if you think about it, just because of the coloration and the hoppiness to it. I know that's not what they classified it as, but it's more along that line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that might be what ends up becoming more prevalent anyway, is the Vienna style of the lagers, because the Vienna style is approachable by everybody but has a little more flavor and doesn't take quite as long to lager as a traditional pilsner or a traditional lager. But yeah, like you said, a brewery that makes something really good and then sells out to the big guys. Uh, who knows? Maybe Cam and them will sell Steam Whistle one day, and then they take the entire Steam Whistle Plus, Steam Whistle Light, and the Von Bugle stuff and do whatever they want with it. And I mean that being put into mass production might
Mm-hmm.
actually take away some of its tailing off so quickly, because it's tailing off so quickly because of the ingredients being used. Once you filter to Molson standards or Labatt standards of like zero particulates, I don't know if it would
Right.
still taste the same, but it'll last a lot longer.
Yeah, like Beers for Breakfast going on about cottage lager from Bob Cage, and I could see that getting filtered down with increased distribution. But if you made a beer that didn't really need to get filtered down all that much to begin with, if you just made a plain Jane lager, I can see you really connecting through marketing with the common Joe 6 pack.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. As it grows, who knows what happens to it, right? There have been great lagers. I've had Flying Monkey's Anti Gravity Ale, which was actually a light ale, but it was basically your like American lager esque type of flavor. Just it was aled, like it was done with ale yeast instead of lagered, so it didn't have to be lagered.
Right.
Stonehammer Light Lager was a great beer again, and it's gone from the world of craft brewing.
Does
Was there
Upper
anything else?
Canada still make a lager?
Last time I was in Ontario, you could still get the Upper Canada Lager, which is now made by Sleeman, is it not? And
Yeah, I think
it
so.
just it did not have the same life to it, in my opinion, as it did when it first was out there. And Upper Canada was originally owned by Cam's parents, and Cam being one of the owners of excuse me, steam whistle. That is kind of where Cam got his idea, because Upper Canada really had the two. It had the lager and the dark. And
Right.
Cam's idea for working with the steam whistle Pilsner was, my dad was basically teaching me pick something and do it really well. So they picked a Pilsner and did it really well. Whether or not you love the beer, it was a well-made Pilsner. Again, Bose didn't have a huge plethora of beers to choose from. They would make all their one-offs and stuff that they would sell in their 4-packs, but Lug Tread was their bread and butter, and it was a great Kolsch. It still is a great Kolsch. There are some of these guys that are proving that you can make a really good lager, and with the proper marketing and the proper distribution, sell it really well. And then there's guys that just don't care. And I mean, I get it. A lot of guys want to have their niche. Rebellion's niche is IPAs and sours. Pile of Bones niche is IPAs and sours. Multinationals yeast is IPAs and stouts and porters. Like, I'm just going by the breweries here, right? District is trying to do the more everyman beers, and so is
Right.
Regina Brewing. They're both like, if why would we compete with these guys when we can try and make a beer that everybody's going to enjoy and try and sell even more product? And they still both make the odd beer that is going to be craft centric. I mean, District makes a great dark German lager. They make a great dark German lager. They make a great Radler. They make a great wheat beer. Regina Brewing, Chris makes an amazing oatmeal stout. I haven't had everything else by him, but most of the other stuff has been lackluster. Other than like the Pilsner's been really good; it's been spot on, and the Genuine Draft was spot on. The one that you thought looked like the King Union made can. So I mean, these guys are realizing that their niche in the market to stay afloat is going to have to be something that brings in more people than, look at my coconut porter and my this and that stout and my bourbon barrel aged stout and my, they're like, we can't compete with that. These guys have been around longer. They're in better locations. They have more distribution. We need to think outside the box on what we can do. And District's other thing that they're doing is they've become a distributor for other breweries. So when you go in there, you can buy about 6 different breweries in Saskatchewan's beers there as well. So I mean, both of those ideas are great ways to do it.
So I'll get to James's comment in a minute here, but with contract brewing, that seems to be the way that you can maintain the most control over your beer and try to sell it at an affordable price. Like Cool Brewery in Etobicoke, there's barely any cool beer that comes out of Cool Brewery. There's about 7 different beers that come out of there. Do you remember a lager that was out last summer called OK Beer?
No, I never had OK Beer.
Little white can with a gold tin on the top like that. It was just a straight across the board lager, but the cheapest they could sell it was $3.05 a can, and that was a little $3.55. So you're still paying $20 a 6-pack.
Yeah, no, I never had that one.
I think it can be done, but I just don't think any small brewery right now can do it themselves and sell it at a reasonable price, because the Joe 6-pack that wants that regular lager does not want to pay $25 for a 6-pack. Jay Nosway, is lager's problem a pricing issue? Which I think that's what we're getting at here. Lager is generally cheaper. IPAs are seen via pricing point more expensive. They're better beer, a better social image. Is lager's cheap beer pricing hurting itself?
I think it's what makes it so that, again, a craft brewer doesn't really go near it as much, because again, you're taking up valuable real estate, so you have to sell the beer for more money to begin with, because you are lowering what you are able to get out to the public. And then at the same time, with the cost of everything going up, and your grains are going up, your hops are going up, your yeast is going up, your labor is going up, your transportation's going up, a lot of the smaller craft brewers can't keep up. I mean, again, the 12 pack of Rebellion's beer, which to me isn't a great Kolsch to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Mark doesn't like some of the things I've said about some of his stuff, but it is what it is. Won't ever be getting the job there now. But anyway, at almost $5 a can, because I mean the 12 pack is $41, and then you're looking at the GST still goes on it, the liquor tax still goes on it in Saskatchewan, and the deposit still goes on it. So the pricing is actually even worse when you think about it. At least here, where in Ontario you see all the price except for the deposit in the price. Um, that that 12 pack for $41, I can get a 2-4 of the big guys for less than that. So why would I buy the 12 pack of the beer
Right.
when I can get a 24 pack of Old Vienna for less money, or a 15 pack of Bronc, which is one of the new beers that have come out here, one of the new lagers, and it's $12 cheaper for 3 extra cans, and it's also craft. Or the Regina Genuine Draft, which the 12 pack of Regina Genuine Draft is almost $20 cheaper than the Rebellion variant. Like, why would I go into that when I don't have to? So I think part of the pricing problem is the craft brewer's ability to get the ingredients, the ability to push product out, because again, you're sitting on a lager for a lot longer than you're sitting on an ale. An ale you're sitting on for 4 to 10 days normally. A lager you could be sitting on for a month, 2 months sometimes. Like, so you're taking that capacity away, you're taking those prices away, so you try to make more back on it. But you're right, it is to an extent seen as a lesser product, because if you're going to go into, say, you're in the US and you walk into a Trader Joe's and you see a
Okay.
$2.99 6 pack, that $2.99 6 pack is going to be a lager. It's not going to be a stout or an IPA or anything. It's a lager. So I get what he's saying. Like, is the idea of what price it's supposed to be making it harder to sell, especially when you see the prices that the smaller guys are selling them for. And I could see that be a shot in the foot, right? If you can get a 12 pack of Moosehead, let's just say $13.99. We're in the US. We can get a 12 pack of Moosehead for $13.99.
Okay. That's
And I
fantasy
can,
land up here, but yeah, okay.
yeah, I'm just thinking about some prices I know, right? Or
Okay.
I can get
Okay.
the 12 pack of Brooklyn Lager for $22.99. Which one is more cost effective, especially in the way prices are rising right now?
Upper Canada lager is not very tasty. And Matt Humphrey says, this is gross to me, but if you buy a standard 12 pack of any generic beer here in New Brunswick, it's $30 and 24s are $46. What's the standard and low prices like in both ways? Sorry. What's the standard and low prices like in both of your areas for beer? Oh, okay. He's talking to us. Well, Beers for Breakfast drinks Laker Ice, and I just wanted to chime in with that because the Laker products, one of the reasons I've heard in Beers for Breakfast reviews is one of the reasons he drinks it is because it's $2.10 a can. Those Laker products, they don't even have to advertise. You don't hear Maker or Laker, it's a buck of beer on the radio anymore. That beer pretty much just sells itself. So if you were to come up with a beer and try to compete with Brick Brewing at their brewing level, and they have no trouble selling beer, how could a little guy sell a nice lager at $2.10 a pint? I don't believe they can do it on their own. They would have to go through a brewery like Cool, or they would have to sell it through Brick Brewing.
Okay, so I just decided to open up Sobeys Liquor just for shits and giggles, right? So we're looking at 12 packs of just basic beer. Now, I know, again, that I can get craft beer for cheaper than what's going to be sold on here. With what they have is 12 packs on here. But just to give him an idea,
Are these bottles or
again,
cans?
these are cans. Everything's basically cans. So a
Okay.
24 pack of Bohemian beer in the 355 milliliter cans, and Bohemian was a budget beer in Ontario for a while as well. That is $47.99. Now, if I'm going to go to Brewhouse Pilsner, Brewhouse is part of Great Western, so it's a craft brewery in Saskatoon, but they make what's more considered the more approachable beers and all that. Their 2.4 is the same price, $47.99. Bud Light, $56.99. Budweiser, $56.99. 18 pack of Bud is $47. Then we get down to, say, again, what we were talking about, the Great Western Light. I like Great Western Light, $51.99 for the 2.4. Kokanee, $57. Mick Ultra, $62. Molson Canadian, $57. Old Milwaukee, a 15 pack is $30. But then we get to the Rebellion beer, and it's $43.99 for their 12 pack. So yeah, I mean, it all depends, right? And you can get, because this most stuff here is sold by the private, you can find sales and all that. Like when I bought my District Light, it was a 15 pack, and I got the 15 pack for $20 because it was on sale. So I mean, it depends on where you are, but
Well, it's a completely different market, like where you are, and the rest of the world. Well, the rest of Canada anyway. I'm coming from Ontario, and I can chime in for beers for breakfast as well. So a 2.4 of cans of Laker Ice is $48, and a 6-pack of Moosehead bottles is about $20. We're still playing. We got that import premium thing going on still.
Yeah, and the problem here is the taxation. The Saskatchewan Party, the taxation of the Saskatchewan Party is insane. They're very progressive. It actually has made the province a much better place. You save a lot of money in a lot of ways. Like, we just insured our car here because private insurance companies can't exist in Saskatchewan. It's government insurance, and it's not for profit. Alicia's saving $95 a month in her insurance now that we've just switched the car's insurance over from Ontario to here. Huge, right? That's huge. But at the same time, it's all taxation, because you figure the majority of your malts that you're using in your beer are from here. The majority of the hops that are using in their beers is grown here. We have the biggest portion of farmland in the country. You're not traveling very far. It's all taxation here.
If you were making your own lager company, what would be your approach, or is it just not worth it? And I think we're coming up with that in this conversation alone. As I was saying before, for me, what makes the most sense is to brew a basic lager and sell it. If you try to brew it and sell it by yourself, you're just going to go broke.
Yes, but for you to get a big guy to want to buy it from you, you're going to have to prove market share, which is why guys like Steam Whistle have the better chance of selling.
Right.
That's why Bose did sell. Like, the reason this stuff happens is because you prove your market value. Now, did Steam Whistle buy Bose so that in the end they can sell to somebody else? Probably, to be honest. It's probably what's going to happen. In the next year or two, you'll probably read that they sold as well. But to start your own company as a lager company, I don't know if you could really do it well. I mean, because if your beer, I don't know if you can be a craft brewer, at least in the market I'm in. I'm possibly in Ontario, because Ontario has a lot more people. But in the market I'm in, I don't know if you could do it, because you'd have to start with one. You would have to start with one and be ready to spread it across the entire province to try and push your way into the market.
If you can really invest. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and what I would want to do personally is have. I'd want a beer. I'd want a light beer. I'd want a strong beer, and I'd want a dark beer, and then maybe have almost the same base for all the same colored beers. And I talked to this Cameron about this when I was at Steam Whistle one time, and I'm like, and he does it now. They have Steam Whistle Plus, which is unfiltered. They have Steam Whistle. They had Steam Whistle Strong for a bit. They had Steam Whistle and Steam Whistle Light, and I'm like, you could make the exact same Steam Whistle each time, and either put a little less water, a little more water, or don't filter it, and then you have 4 different beers. He's like, yeah, we're just looking at one, and then he started making the other ones. So I mean, it is stuff like that you could do. You could make a base beer and make a great base beer, and then slightly edit it to make the other ones, and then you're actually not adding any extra overhead but now you're lowering your capacity because how long it takes to brew each one.
I would see it as brewing it more as an investor than as a brewer. So you would take it to a place like Steam Whistle, Cool Brewery, Brick, and just subcontract your beer out. Basically, you've got the recipe, but you want to use their stuff to make it, and that's the only thing that can get you close to being bought out by Molson or Coors or something like that. Beers for breakfast. It's totally not worth craft brewers to make lagers. I just uploaded a review today, Swing Bridge Blonde. It was good, but they tried too much. Not worth buying. He talked about that too in the last show in regards to brewers trying too hard. And that goes to our conversation today about dialing it back.
Oh, and just because I didn't bring it up, that non-alcoholic beer was pretty damn good. Just saying. And you're the moderator. You're in charge of everything. I'm just saying it was pretty damn good.
This is a topic that hits hard with you. I'm not even going to put it in the form of a question. Irish Reds.
Oh, motherfucker. The fucking red ales. Fuck. I'm so fucking tired of going out. Actually, I'm going to chug this quickly because I have this here from them. And they didn't say it's an Irish red, but they just wrote red ale. I want to know what the fuck this is, because if this is like an American red, go fuck yourself. A red ale is one of my babies. I love red ales. I do. I really, really do. And I love and you don't find it. There's even people that say, hey, this is our Irish red. And then you drink it and it's a fucking American red. It's just full of fucking hops and nothing else. And I actually talk to my buddy Tim about this quite often. Tim is now brewing at it's a brewery in Sarnia. What the hell is it called? Something City. Whatever. But he's now the head brewer there, and me and him talk about Irish Reds all the time. And he's like, I fucking hate buying Irish Reds. I hate buying them because I buy them, I go to drink them, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And it's the same thing I do. I buy an Irish Red, I drink it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I buy any red, and I drink it, and I'm like, what the fuck? Stop it. Stop putting hops in everything just to put hops in everything. Make a proper beer. Make the everyman beer like the beer was meant to be. It's like when you could go out and get fucking craft pilsners now. You go and get craft pilsners, and you buy the craft pilsner, and you take your first sip of it, and you just get bitch slapped in the face with hops, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" And it pisses me off because I just spent good money. This was in an 8-pack, okay? So it was 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. This cost me $7 more for the 8-pack than it would cost if I had bought 2 of the 4-packs. Because unfortunately, for some reason, this is a brewery, and as much as I really like some of their beers, I might not go back because I have to buy everything in a 4-pack. They will not sell it to you in a single. So if I was to buy a 4-pack of this, and when I open this is really hoppy, I would have been pissed. I would have been pissed because you just sold me a red ale and most red ales, let's be honest, when you just say red ale, you're doing that to blanket it, but you're trying to get everybody that loves a good Irish red to buy it as well. And half the time you're sitting back there and you're like, hey, fuck this shit. Fuck it all. Like, why? Just make me a red ale. Make me a red ale.
I didn't have to put in a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Leave these then.
Okay. So
now tell us how you really feel about it, Chad.
So this is 5% alcohol, so it's at least the right ABV. Because I mean, you expect somewhere between 4.6 and 5.4. That's what I expect. So it's right at your hated number, right at 5 exactly. So the ABV is right to make me think that maybe I'm just going to get an Irish red.
Right.
Because a lot of times
I think 5.2 is generally where it stops.
If it's an American, usually it's going to be a little higher. So maybe I'm going to get lucky here. But yeah, like color, I did pour this aggressively because I'm getting angry now. Color, beautiful. Exactly what I expect. A little bit more haze than I would have expected, but exactly what I'd expect, right? Exactly what I'd expect. This beer has not been reviewed yet, so you're going to probably hear these exact same words again and this exact same anger freak out now that you got me started on this when I do review it. But
my work here is done.
That's hoppy as fuck. It tastes like there's Cascade and whole melon in it. And neither of those should be in an Irish red. Yeah, that's hoppy as fuck. That's fucking fruity as fuck. And it's not fruity like I'm eating licorice. That's fruity.
Right? Okay, before you punch a hole through the wall, Jay Noseworthy would like your opinion on some of the following beers: Mill Street Organic, Muskoka Craft, Kokanee. I'd like to hear Kokanee. I haven't had Kokanee in 200 years.
Excuse me. Okay, Mill Street Organic. First time I had Mill Street Organic, I did not like it, but I was just getting into the craft beer world. As I grew, I could drink it. It was probably one of the lighter, lower ABV lagers that I could just sit back and drink. After they got bought out, I have noticed a very quick decline in that beer. Now,
in what way?
That's not saying it's tasting more and more like the average Anheuser-Busch lager.
Is that bad?
Every few months, it seems to go a little closer to the average Anheuser-Busch, as if they're slowly lowering the quality, hoping you don't notice that the quality is lowering. And I mean, is it drinkable? It's still drinkable, but it's not what it was. Like I used to when I was in Pavernatuck before they sold out. The store I would order from, and you could order a 2 for a beer a week. So when we ordered it, am I supposed to open this?
No.
No?
Mommy said I need to.
Okay.
Special guest reviewer.
So when I first moved up there, I would always buy the mix pack of Mill Street, just to get the organic because I liked it, and I would sit back and I would have that a few times, and that would be one of my 12 packs, and the other 12 pack I ordered would be random beers I hadn't had for the review. Now, I don't buy it. I don't. I buy a single can every once in a while just to see where it's at, but it's not sitting where I used to remember it. Muskoka Craft Lager. It was one I think I haven't had one in years. I will preface this with that. I have not had a Muskoka Craft in years. Okay, I do need to open it.
As I said, a couple of years back when Muskoka Craft came out with their light lager, it was about 4.2%. And I remember having a conversation with, I can't remember his name, but just one of the brewers. I said, you don't even have to call it a light lager. They were using that as marketing to get into that light lager community and telling people or showing people that light lagers can still be tasty. But a lager is still perfectly acceptable at 4.2, whether you want to call it light or not.
Okay, so yeah, tread lightly. I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, so the Muskoka lager, the last time I had it, I thought it was too hoppy for just an average drinking lager. If you were going to give me, in their heyday, if you're going to give me a choice between the Mill Street Organic and the Muskoka Craft, I'd go Mill Street Organic every single day. Again, it's been a long time since I've had my last Muskoka Craft, so I can't fully say anything on it. Kokanee, I think I'm probably like you on Kokanee there, Chris. I can drink it. There's nothing to me. It's your average macro lager. I don't find any off flavors in it. But is it my macro lager of choice? No, but I don't find anything wrong with it.
Did Kokanee ever go the route of Kokanee Honey Brown, Kokanee Ice, Kokanee Light?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I imagine there's Kokanee Light.
I know when I got married to my first wife, we were at the Legion that we were having our reception at, and my buddy went up to buy some beers, and she's like, "Do you want Bud, Canadian, Coors, Bud Light, Miller?" He goes, "Do you have any imports?" And she said, "I have Kokanee." And he still remembers that to this day. He goes, "The best part of your marriage to her was that the people in that town thought that Kokanee was a import." He goes, I didn't like your ex-wife. I'm glad you're not with her anymore, but I will remember that till the day I die.
You're not going to forget something like that. Beers for Breakfast mentions Imperial City, but I'm not quite sure what he's getting at.
That's the brewery that Tim is the brewmaster at now.
Okay. Muskoka Craft is not horrible. I don't think there's anything horrible that comes out of Muskoka, really. I mean, it's Uncle Chuckles says it's Rhino time.
Hey, Chad and Regina.
Hey, Chad. Regina. I legitimately live 3 minutes away from Moosehead Brewery. What's both of your opinions on their beers? I'm ashamed of it personally.
To be honest, Matt, there is some beers. You know what is? I'm just gonna say this: the more I'm drinking this red ale, the more I don't hate it, but the more I'm pissed off because I want an Irish red.
It's good angry beer.
Yeah. To answer you there, Matt. I've seen some of their one-off beers and their small batch beers that I've really wanted to try. I have no real complaints about it other than when it's in the green bottles. I do not like the original, the Moosehead Pale. I'm not a big fan of Moosehead Pale. Moosehead Light, I'm not a huge fan of. Moosehead itself, the Canadian variant, I can drink. The variant they sell in the US for a lot cheaper, I will never touch again in my life. Cracked Canoe, if you're looking for something that's fucking close to water, it works. They're Radlers. Some of the Radlers are okay. Some of them aren't. But yeah,
Barking Squirrel.
I'm Barking Squirrel. Yeah, because that is a Moosehead product. You are correct. I don't actually mind Barking Squirrel. So I don't mind Moosehead Original. I don't mind Barking Squirrel. I don't mind Cracked Canoe. I'm not really a big fan of the other ones. A few of the Radlers have been okay. Really, it's their like pseudo craft beers I've been interested in because they make a lot of weird. I've seen like stouts and everything else coming out of there because of Nick in New Brunswick. Yeah, that's right. I can still name drop you, Nick. You might not talk to me anymore, but I can still name drop you. I don't know how you feel about Moosehead, but I don't think there's anything really wrong per se about them.
The Rhino is a good man, if you want to hear that.
Not according to my last job.
Okay. Have to run. Thanks to you both. Take care and enjoyed and learnt. Cheers. Good having you.
Cheers to you, sir.
I really liked having him. Who is Jade Noseworthy anyway?
I believe his name is Julian.
Julian? Good man, Julian. He was valuable input there with the lager talk.
Yes, we greatly appreciate everybody getting involved. Matt, Julian, Uncle Chuckles, everybody. We enjoy it all.
Dave is here. Good Saturday, everybody. Tonight for me is No Bad Days by our good friends at Nickelbrook.
Ah, that's nice, Dave. That's great to hear. I think you have a few more questions. I'm sure the group has some more stuff they want to talk about.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about. I've noticed with quite a few of your reviews. Now, yours are a little bit more centralized to Saskatchewan.
Yes, until people start sending me stuff from outside of Saskatchewan, I'm Saskatchewan-esque, and that's about it.
Right.
With the
odd
Alberta and BC.
You don't have anything against big ABV beers, but you're not necessarily a consistent purchaser of big ABV beers. A lot of the products that you've been showing, and I can agree with stuff I see on the shelves here with new releases in Ontario, we are seeing a lot more beer back at 5% and below. The reason being I'm curious. I have my thoughts, but it's your show. What are your thoughts on this current resurgence of more 5% and lower beer?
In all honesty, I have still seen a lot more here, at least 6, 7, and 8% alcohol beers showing up. However, I'm really excited to hear that because the trends do fall here as well. They just fall a little slower. So if that's the trend happening where you are, I'm going to start seeing it. And I'm 100%, I'd be 100% sure that it's just for sales. Again, like we were talking about earlier, you are going to come back and buy more beer from somebody if you're drinking a 5% alcohol beer than if you're drinking a 10% alcohol beer. You're drinking a 10% alcohol beer and you buy a 6-pack of it. That 6-pack might last you, depending on what you drink, anywhere from a week to 3 weeks. You're drinking a 5% alcohol beer. You're probably going back for another 6-pack sometime that week. Like, if you really think about the majority of people, a lot of people come home and have 1 or 2 beers after work and then they're done. Well, if you're drinking a 10% alcohol beer, you're just having that one. So now you've spread that 6-pack out till 6 days instead of 3 days. So it's
Right.
sales, right? It's more money in the pocket of the brewer because you are selling more. Plus, there is a lot more breweries getting in a lot more trouble for drinking and driving and everything. It is happening again. And the lower the ABV of the beer is you sell to somebody, better chance is you're not getting charged. Also, your best money maker is, as a brewer, your best money maker is when somebody is buying it right at your tap room. And if they're buying it right at your tap room, you want that lower ABV so that they buy more beer.
That's right. Running a brewery these days still hasn't become just a get-rich-quick scheme. That same brewer is putting in the same type of work that the average consumer is putting in too. And when he's coming home having a beer or two, or he or she, pardon me, it's costing them just as much to make higher alcohol beers, particularly if you're doing it craft and you're building your alcohol up properly with malt. If you're Fax Brewery or Unibrew, whatever like that, I think Fax 10 goes for 4.25 now. Actually, I don't think that. I know that. And you can brew whatever the hell you want if you're just doing with corn syrup, basically. But what I'm getting at is it's just as expensive for the brewer to make a high alcohol beer than it is for you to buy it.
One thing I'm actually really sad that you don't see more of, and again, I know that it's because people are afraid of it, because the lower the ABV, the more shit that can show up in the beer, like the more off flavors and everything else. But I'm sad you don't see more English milds, be them darks, not darks. I know that Pile of Bones makes an English mild, and I'm really excited to try it. But again, I'm going to have to buy it in a 4-pack. So if it's a bad dark English mild, I just spent $20 on something that I don't like. I mean, it does give me 3 other cans that I can send to somebody else, but I still just bought something I might not like.
English mild is a very affordable beer to make by yourself, even just at the extract level. Do you have any pulse out there on home brewing? Have you heard anybody talking about
There's not one homebrew shop in Regina, so if you want to buy, you have to drive to Saskatoon or to Moose Jaw. There is a group that I've been invited to join from Chris at Regina Brewing. That is the Lager and Ale. It's Ale and Lager Enthusiast Society or something. It's called Ales. He's the president, and it's home brewers. But it doesn't seem to be a big thing here. Like I said to you, we have talked about it. I have bought all the clearance Mr. Beer kits. I'm going to be making one of them tomorrow. I might even make 2 of them tomorrow. Start up 2 of them. I do have yeast. I went out and because 2 of them are very expired, very past their best before date IPAs. I did bring in Nottingham yeast because I want to make a more English IPA, but I'm making an
Mhm.
English IPA with a twist because I bought Nelson Sauvin hops and I bought Sriracha Ace. So I'm going to do something weird with those. The other two kits that were well past their dates were the Canadian blondes, and the one that was still in date was the American blonde. So I'll make the American blonde first. I might make one of the Canadian blondes, or I might make one of the IPAs. Again, if I make the IPAs, I'm using the Nottingham yeast. I'm using those hops. When I make the Canadian blondes, one of them I'm going to be making into a coffee blonde. I actually already have the coffee ready to be like I have all these stupid things in my head. It's probably going to be stupid because a Mr. Beer kit isn't much anyway, but a Mr. Beer it's Cooper's. Cooper's owns Mr. Beer. So it's still Cooper's kits. So I have a chance of it being good, but I have a chance of it being horrendous at the same time. And when I was able to get them for like $10 and $15, I was like, you know what? I have to buy them and see what happens. And again, like I said, they're they're interesting to say the least to me because I know that it can come. Basically, I bought them for the equipment, right? I bought them for the bottles. I bought them for the like. I didn't care really if the stuff inside worked. I just wanted the extra bottles and everything else. And I'm hoping that beer turns out. But with fresh yeast and fresh hops, it should be fine because the extract should be perfectly okay. It's just the yeast is guaranteed to be dead.
Because
But yeah, so I'm
the
excited.
kit, just the kit brews about the equivalent of a 6-pack at a time, correct?
It is 8 liters.
8 liters.
So you're
Yeah, you
looking
might
at
get 12 beers. You might get about 12 beers out of it, of 341 milliliter bottles. I think that stuff you're going to make is going to put your shoes on backwards, but like you said, you bought it for the equipment.
Yeah, I even bought. They had one from Tool Shed, which is a brewery in Alberta. They had one there too that was on clearance, and it was a grain kit, but it was like the steeped grain kit. I don't know if I'm going to use the grains because again, everything is like 2 or 3 years past date. But I bought
All right.
that solely for the 2 growlers it came with. It came with a racking tube. It came with an airlock. I bought it because it was $15 and it came with all the equipment. If I don't use anything that came in the box, I don't care. I have the equipment.
Well, do you have any final comment on alcohol strength right now? The common alcohol strength. You said it's big over there, and I said it's getting smaller over here. Are we going to find a happy medium?
I
I
hope
think
to
with this
see
current
it continue
economy,
to
we're
go
going to
down.
be seeing lower alcohol beer.
Yeah, because again, the lower the alcohol content, the cheaper the beer should be. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it's going to go, but the cheaper the beer should be, and also the more money the brewery can put in its pocket, because the lower the ABV, the more beer you're going to buy, because the more beer you're going to consume. I would make
Right.
a brewery if this was me opening my own brewery again. Not that I've opened one before, but I've been asked about opening a brewery many a time. If I was opening my own brewery, I'm looking at making mostly all lower ABV beers. I'd say 5.5 down to 3. And my one-offs would be the things that are the higher ABV beers, like my small batch stuff.
Okay. Well, I've got a question not just for you, Rhino. This one goes out to everybody. What beers are you looking forward to now as we're getting into spring? Do your tastes tend to go towards, do they shift with the seasons? Do you like darker beer in the wintertime and Pilsners and Maibocks and stuff in the spring? I know in Ontario, we don't have the best example of Maibocks that come to the LCBO. But yeah, for everybody, what is a beer you're looking forward to come spring?
I don't know if I can say I'm really big on the spring beers. I think for me, my two biggest seasons for beer is winter and summer, because I mean summer you start seeing the radlers popping everywhere and the fruit beers and the sours and all that, and in the winter you see all the porters and stouts and everything else coming out. I think those are my two favorite seasons. Spring, I mean, well, you don't even see a Marzen until fall usually. But yeah, I'm not a huge Bach fan. I'm not. I don't really care. If I was in Ontario, Muskoka's Oddity, the Spring Oddity. I love that beer. I do really get excited when it comes out. Other than that, I don't think there's a lot I get excited about right now for the spring beers.
King Brewery used to make King Brewery made a hybrid beer. They called it a Pillsbach, and it was their take on a Maibach. But I think you had to go to King to get it.
We got a lime lager next.
Well, Chad, I'm not going to grill you any harder like Tom Brokaw tonight. That's it for questions. I just like to hear what everybody else is drinking tonight, and that's pretty much what I've got. That's what I've got for the show tonight. All beers are good beers for any season, but I get excited for winter with the stouts and porters. But Marzens and Oktoberfests are the ones I look forward to the most. Now, that's a funny one with Oktoberfests because Oktoberfests are meant to be a very sessionable beer. They're about to be a beer that you could drink, these things from one of these.
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of Oktoberfest season coming in at 6%. The idea of Oktoberfest is consumption, but it's eating and it's being with friends. It's not about getting totally blitzed. And that's all that's going to happen if you're going Oktoberfest session style drinking by the liter with 6% Oktoberfests.
Yeah. Oh, you're 100% correct in that. And I mean, I fully agree with Matt. Any beer is good for any season. I love stouts all season long. I love radlers all stuff. I have a radler right here. I really like this radler. I love radlers. I'll drink them all season long. I love stouts. I'll drink them all season long. I love porters. I'll drink them all season long. So I understand exactly what he's saying. Any beer is good for any season. I do fully 100% agree. But you also have to think about, and he's talking about it right here too. Like there are seasons where they put out more of certain beers. And that's the thing. Winter is where you see all the stouts and porters coming out for the most part. I love winter for that. Summer is where you see all the sours and the fruit beers and all that. I love them. So I love when I see that come out. So I get really excited for those seasons because of that. I wish people would stop going, this is going to be a seasonal. Make a seasonal be a beer that you just try for a while and make more than one batch of. Because a lot of times you'll hear a brewery go, this is my seasonal. Well, it's not really your seasonal beer. It's your one batch beer that you're making once and hoping will sell out. And right. that kind of bothers me, right? Like you'll get, hey, this is my radler. It's my summer seasonal. And then like 2 weeks later, you're like, hey, where's your radler? Oh, we sold out. But I thought it was your seasonal. Yeah. So why don't you have more? Well, we sold out. But it's still a summer season.
Right.
But we're out. Okay, so that was a one-off specialty. That wasn't a seasonal beer. Because for me, seasonal means you're making it for those 4 months. You should be at least.
They don't sell the Oddity at the LCBO anymore.
Well, the Muskoka Spring Oddity. What Muskoka started doing with it, and I don't know if they still do, is they were artificially inflating the price of it by holding a bunch of it back to sell it as vintages. And they started doing this about 7 years ago. And they put out a batch, and then they held half of the batch back. And then the next year, they put out half of that half batch they held back and sold it for like twice the price of the fresh stuff going, this is a year vintage. And then the next year, they put out a third of that batch that they had held back, of that half batch that was still back. And they're like, well, look, this one's 2 years vintages. You should pay more again. And they just started. So I don't know if the LCBO just gave up on it because of the fact that there was just so many SKUs for the same beer, because they would be putting out Spring Oddity this 1 year age, Spring Oddity 2 year age, Spring Oddity 3. So I'm going to assume, and I mean, making assumptions isn't the greatest thing to do, but knowing how the LCBO does business, I'm going to assume they said, fuck this shit, we ain't playing with this game anymore. You get one SKU and one SKU only, and they didn't know what to do because they had all this beer saved up. So it just stopped happening.
Dave says he likes stouts in the fall, but he's generally a lager boy. Easy drinking, cheap. I just tried a James Ready 6.0, and I'm in. I like liquors as well. Gin is great for spring. Hope I sound just like Dave. I'm going to sneak one in here then. In regards to seasonal beers and wanting them all year round, I don't mean this to be a trick question, but where are you on pumpkin beers?
Okay. Pumpkin beers. That's a loaded question. That's a very loaded. Okay, pumpkin beers. I love some pumpkin beers. Most of the pumpkin beers I love come out of the U.S. Howl at the Moon, Pumpkin, Warlock, all U.S. pumpkin beers. Fucking pumpkin pie in a glass. You're getting the fucking graham cookie crust too. Like I would drink pumpkin every day. I would drink Warlock, which is their pumpkin stout from Southern Tier, every day. I would drink Howl at the Moon. And the guys that make Howl at the Moon make like 17 pumpkin beers. Here's the thing with pumpkin beers. Pumpkin beers really are in 3 different categories, right? They're beers that just have some pumpkin in it, just to give that mouthfeel. Beers that have almost no pumpkin in it, but are more pumpkin spice beers, where you're sitting with like your coriander, your allspice, your cloves, your cinnamon, your all that shit. And then you have fucking pumpkin pie in it. That's where it is. It's pumpkin pie in a glass. I'll drink that all day, every day. The other 2 like subgenres, you can throw those the fuck away, and I don't ever want to see them again. That's where I am with pumpkin beers. And I know there's not a lot of people. The best part is there is a pumpkin beer out of Manitoba. No, PEI. Gay and Brewing is PEI, I believe. Matt, if I'm wrong, correct me. But I believe Gay Hand Brewing is PEI. They make a pumpkin beer that actually has 0 pumpkin in it. It's all the pumpkin spices and nothing else. That is a fucking bullshit beer right there. If you're going to tell me it's a pumpkin beer, it better have pumpkin in it. Now, a beer that was made at Cayman Kettle by my good buddy Dave, and Dave hates pumpkin beers. He wants nothing to do with pumpkin beers. And I talked him into making one once. I'm like, you really need to make a pumpkin beer. It is the thing. It is the shit. It is what people are after. It is the craze. He's like, I don't want to do it. I go, but it's the craze, man. You got to fucking cash in on the craze. You're a little brewery in Font Hill. You want people to come out here. You need to cash in on the fall pumpkin beer craze. And in the end, he did it. He did. He gave in and he made one, but he wanted to make one that nobody would drink. So he made a habanero pumpkin beer. He sold out of it in 2 days. I'm like, you need to make that again. He's like, I don't want to make pumpkin. Like, are you fucking stupid, Dave? I love you. You sold it out in 2 days. That means people liked it or wanted to try it enough that they bought it out in 2 days. Make another batch.
It's a business.
Yeah. He still never made it because he hates pumpkin beers. And I'm like, look, when you have a brewery, you need to play with those trends. You need to play with what people like. You need to make what people are going to drink. Because you always get I always used to ask the question to brewers. I'm like, are you making what is going to sell, or are you making what you like? And I mean, you would get half and half, right? You'd get guys that are like, oh, I make what I want to drink, or I make what's going to sell. Make what's going to sell. Make what you like at the same time. But make what you like be the small, like, one-off batches and stuff. Right? Like, make that your true seasonal stuff. You know, I really like this beer. Nobody else is really going to drink it. I want to drink it all the time. I'm going to make it for these 2 months. Make it. Maybe people are going to like it and it's going to be good enough. But if you find a beer that you sell out of in 2 days, make it again.
It's not like when you run a business and you come up with you figure how much money you're going to get paid yourself, like how much money you're going to pocket in the end. That comes at the back end of your quote. everything else that has nothing to do with you goes in front. So in regards to does he want to brew a pumpkin beer or not, I don't really give a fuck if it's selling.
I don't like brewing pumpkin beers. If I made a pumpkin beer that sold out in 2 days, you better believe I'd be making it again.
Pumpkin habanero beer. Dave says pumpkin beers glow in the dark can. What is the pumpkin flavor other than cinnamon? It's a very subtle flavor.
Usually pumpkin pie would be cinnamon, allspice, cloves.
Nutmeg.
You are correct. Yes, nutmeg as well.
PEI and Gahan pumpkin beer is BS. He means bullshit. I know exactly what you're talking about. Har, har, har.
Also, guys, let us know how you feel about this setup because, like we said, we're going to rotate back and forth between the group hangout and this. And I don't know how this is going. I don't know how many people are viewing it. I know that you guys seem to be talking a lot to us, so that's great. And this is what we wanted. We just surpassed. We're at an hour and 20 minutes. We figured that we would give this between an hour and 2 hours, so we're doing good.
Uncle Chuckle says, "What's the spring beers?" I don't quite.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
There's not a lot of spring beers out there. I mean, they're really Box. Isn't Box really the majority of the spring beers that come out?
It is, and then you would get like, I don't want you to punch a hole through the drywall again, but in regards to release beers. I haven't been to an LCBO in a while. Beers for breakfast, if you wouldn't mind. Have you seen Rogue beer in the LCBO in a while? I sit here like I'm waiting for a response. I guess we'll get back to that when we do the other show.
Ro, are you talking about that Oregon Brewing?
Yeah,
brewery in Oregon.
Remember it used to come in the big bombers?
Yes.
Rogue Brewing Company.
You could join the Rogue Army, and they would send you a condom and everything, and the Rogue condom.
Liqueur de Malt, that was Dogfish Head. Nugget Nectar, I think, was something close to a Maibach that came out of.
Yeah, and they made Dead Man and Double Dead Man and.
Keep the switch up, Matt Humphrey says. You guys are great. Another generous contribution.
Matt, I love you, but I'm really, really going to have to kick you. Like, really.
$20. Think of all the Laker Ice you can buy with that.
I'm not in Ontario. I can't buy much Laker Ice with that. That's a 4-pack after taxes. That's the thing I think I hate the most about buying alcohol here, because unlike in Ontario, I don't know, in New Brunswick, Matt, do they add all the taxes into the price when you first walk in? So what you're looking at is basically your price. In Ontario, if it says $3.95, you're paying $4.05 because you're paying $3.95 plus the deposit.
Right.
Here, if it says $3.95, you're paying $3.95 plus the 10-cent deposit, plus the liquor tax, plus the GST.
Rogue is good stuff from Uncle Chuckles. I just want to know if you can still get it. I haven't seen it I just haven't been inside an LCBO in a long time.
This is the thing, right? Regina seems expensive. Again, this province is really good at being progressive. This province is really good at making things affordable. This house is so cheap comparative to a house like this in Ontario, to a house like this in Quebec, to a house like this in Alberta, to a house like this in Manitoba, to a house like this in BC. That is cheap. Gas is cheaper because of the taxation on gas is nowhere near the same. Food, again, cheaper. But the taxation on liquor is insane. And I mean, I get it. It is a sin tax. I get it. Okay, that's fine.
They do. It's the only thing in New Brunswick that taxes and deposits are added in the price. They get us good.
And I mean, we get taxed. We get a deposit charged on anything in a container. So, like today, I bought a 40-pack of water at Costco. So I paid an extra $4 on that 40-pack because you pay 10 cents per
bottle. Between Matt, yourself, and the rest of us, we all represent 3 completely different markets.
Yes, we do.
Christopher is doing excellent as co-host. Well done. Thank you very much, Steve.
Well, and this is the thing, right? I think Chris as the head of this is probably great. I mean, who was the head of this before? Actually, the last head we had, the last person in charge of the chat room and the questions and everything else was also a Christopher, but he breathed like Darth Vader.
I'll keep it running on biscuit wheels, and I'll try not to take a bite out of it.
And I'm talking about Boy Chuck in what I'm saying here.
Well, how do you want to blow this one out?
Well, my wife has yelled at me twice that it's dinner, so I will give people 10 minutes to say whatever they want. You guys can ask things, you can say things.
How about this? Is anybody going to enjoy? Is anybody going to have a beer they haven't had before this weekend? Come this April, you get 10 cents back as a deposit. It has been 5 cents as long as I can remember. How is it in Ontario and Saskatchewan? It's 10 cents here as well.
Ontario, it depends on what container it is. Like the little yogurts that you can get, the drinkable yogurts, those are 5 cents. The cans are 10 cents. Bomber bottles are 25 cents. Jars are it ranges from 5 cents to 50 cents depending on the container. But like my list of Sarcan things that I'm supposed to collect to bring back is insane.
Right.
What the fuck, Middlefra? This is a man. I'm not going to say his first name in case he doesn't want me to, but this is a man that has been here for most of the Albino Rhino beer review life. He is on my Facebook now. He is in the Ottawa region, and we always mean to get together every time I'm in the Ottawa region, and then he's always too busy for me. He makes me cry. But my buddy Dale knows him, so Brew by Me knows him.
It's good to have another one on here from the Ottawa region.
Thank you very much. That makes my heart do this. But again, you guys, I love it, but it helps the channel keep going. But you don't need to.
Uncle Chuck, he's answering the question I asked in regards to what's he going to be trying tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, so as an Irishman, I hate every one of you that drinks green beer. No, I don't. If you drink green beer, you drink green beer. I hate amateur drinking day. I hate it. Amateur drinking day has nothing to do with St. Patrick's Day. It agitates me. Like I won't drink. I won't even do a review tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be completely dry because I was raised by Irish people right from Ireland. I will not drink. It's not happening.
It is fun to Google the history of St. Patrick's Day on St. Patrick's Day. Dave, that James Reddy 6.0, that's a different animal from the 5.5. I know it only seems like one little half ladder rung up, but it is a different animal.
Yeah, I can't say I dislike James Reddy 5.5. I can't say I dislike James Reddy 5. I don't think I really like James Reddy 6.0. You're right. It is something, again, you would think it would be like the steam whistle, right? Like where you just add less or more water.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's a different beer.
Fuller, it's got a little bit more heat on the back end. But not to say it's not a nice beer, just it's a different animal.
I am
with that, lads.
Problem here.
Chad, I'm going to wrap it up.
All right, sir.
So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. It was good talking to everybody there.
Yes, thank you for everybody that's been here. It's been great. Paul, you really need to join us next Saturday's Hangout. It won't be till 9 p.m. your time because I have to get home from work, but you really should join us. You should join us on the panel, Paul. You should join us on the panel.
Back at it with a full kick. I'll talk to you later, boys.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. We love you.